Hello everybody, hope you're all well. I'm here in the garden. Sorry, I'm slightly late coming online for this. I'm here in the garden. It's a bit windy and a bit difficult to find a spot where I could show you what I need to show you because it's taken up more space than I have free in the greenhouse. But I have all my bits and pieces there behind me, so I'm going to show you now. So the topic is reusing potting compost. So before I start at all, I better talk about what's compost and what am I meaning potting compost. If you go into a garden centre, you'll see there's a plethora of different composts labelled up, and they'll target them at different uses. So there might be ones for bulb compost, or there might be ones for seed compost. Really, these are all more or less the same thing, but for people who don't know, they've put in different additives to make them work better for the purpose they're in. And these additives are not that fancy. We're talking about stuff to help drainage or to boost the fertilizer that's in it. This is all stuff you can do yourself. And on the basis of time and money, I don't bother buying specific compost. Now, with the exception maybe of houseplant compost. I don't know enough about houseplants, I'll be honest. So maybe a houseplant person, maybe that's something to look at someday. Maybe a houseplant person will be the person for that. But for outdoor compost, one single type of compost is all you need. And you can get, if you get multi-purpose compost, you can use that for pretty much everything. And if you're worried about it in a particular use, you can always do something to it to make it more suitable. The other type of compost is the one you make yourself or your council might make for you. So that's where you get the food clipping, your peelings from your vegetables and that kind of stuff, the eggshells, and that breaks down and eventually makes into compost. That is multi-purpose compost. It's just homemade. And I do that too. I don't tend to use it in my pots. You could, but I don't. And the reason I don't is I have a problem with patience, because it takes at least 6 months for that to break down, and I'd be getting itchy to use it before it's fully ready. So I don't use it for my pots because it's not the right texture. And there's nothing wrong with half decomposed compost in a pot. The only difficulty is that it mightn't drain very well. It won't do your plant any harm chemically or anything. It's just that it mightn't drain. So what I do with my multi-purpose compost, or my compost that I make myself, is I use it as mulch in my beds. Most of my own soil is very clay in soil structure. So if you have a loose, crumbly soil, that's basically the holy grail of soils. Unfortunately, I have no such luck. So my clay soil, I use my compost, my own homemade compost in the spring to help improve it and increase the drainage and nutrient content of that. So for today, I'm going to have a look at the compost that's already in my pots from previous plantings, because a lot of them really are really gone now. Like, I've been sort of clinging on to hope, but it's time to face facts that it's time for the last of my summer plantings to meet their maker. So I'm going to go through that now. You have loads of options, right? And it all comes down to what most things in life come down to: time, money and space. If you have, you're going to choose a different option depending on which of those are more important to you on a particular day than others. So I'm lucky I've loads of space. So for me, when I'm emptying out my old pots of plants here, you can see them kind of, some of them are gone off. I have another one that side. There. I'm getting good at this now. I'll be pointing at captions on Instagram before I know where I am. Anyway, if you're emptying out the likes of that, I often just throw the used compost back onto my flower beds because they need it. But the other thing you could do with it is put it into your compost bin. And the last thing you can do with it is actually start to reuse it yourself. So I'll show you how you could go about doing that. The main thing is you don't need to get rid of it. There is hope. So I'll just empty it out now. Okay, I have my box of tricks. Oh yeah, here's another tip. If you are attempting to do any of this at home, do it on your lawn. If you have a lawn or grass, or put something down on the ground beforehand. I had to do an emergency change of location for this due to the wind today. But it's messy, and save yourself a job sweeping up afterwards. Do it on your lawn. It'll do your lawn the world of good. So here's my shop bought compost. I don't pass any heat. Any compost will do. I don't know what that one is, but it's just multi-purpose compost. The stuff you get in the supermarket is fine. And then the other things I brought out, I'll bring this up to the camera. That's my nearly cooked homemade compost. So there's a good bit of wood shavings in that. It's a bit wet, but not too bad. So that's more or less usable, but you can see it's hanging on to a lot of moisture. So in a pot, you only want the moisture to be going through the pot. You don't want the moisture to stay in the pot, because if the moisture is held in the pot, it's going to rot the roots of the plants that are in it. So they need enough moisture to go up into the leaves and make flowers for you, but you don't want too much that it's going to rot the roots. So what you can do to help with the moisture in a pot is add horticultural grit. This is horticultural grit. It's just baby gravel, basically. Nothing very exciting. You can buy it in a garden centre. A bag of it lasts for ages. And a bag here is about €6 or €7, or it was the last time I bought it. But to be honest, that's probably more than a year ago. So like everything else, it's probably gone up. But it lasts for ages. Like you don't need that much of it. If you don't have that, I saw someone on Instagram recommending, and I'm not recommending it, but I'm just throwing it out there. If you don't have horticultural grit, apparently non-clumping kitty litter can be used as well to improve drainage. I can't stand over that one, but I've heard it said. And another option, if you're on a balcony and you're worried about the weight in your pots, that horticultural grit, it's stone, it's heavy. There's stuff called perlite, and you can use that, which is just really, really light. It's nearly like pumice stone, I suppose, broken up. Or it's a synthetic pumice stone broken up. Okay, so they're things that you can add to your compost or your soil to try and improve the drainage, so that the water is going through the pot and not rotting your roots. Okay, so now I'm going to just empty out one of my pots and show you what I'm doing there. Excuse the cats. They're very excited being out in the wind, and I'm kind of conscious that they've popped up on camera a couple of times already. So, oh, come out of there, mister. Okay, now this pot here, I'm not going to lift it up on the table because it's actually too heavy and I'm afraid it'll break the table. That's how much water is in it, which isn't great. It is a mixture of all sorts of stuff, and I know you can't fully see it now, but you can see that that's a verbena. It mightn't look too bad, but that's definitely gone. So what I do with them, okay, you dig them out, and of course they're well wedged in, but I wanted it to be real life. I didn't want to do a fake job on this. So I'm going to start actually at the sides because I think it's going to be easier. So what I have here at the side is a little fuchsia. That'll come back if you mind it. So what I'll do with that is I'll pop that in another pot. And just as I'm doing it, checking that you can't see any bugs or tiny little white eggs. If you see them at any stage, shout, you're in trouble. But there's nothing there on that. No, perfect. So I'll just pot that up. I know it's a bit sad when it still has a bit of colour. If I was desperate for a bit of colour in the garden, I'd stick that in a pot and still keep it out for another. But you're talking about a couple of weeks now at this stage. It's hardly worth your while. And everything else is banjaxed. Then other things in this pot. Okay, so this one, I can't even remember what that was. But I know it's an annual. It's not going to come back next year, so there's no point in keeping it. So what I'll do with that is I'll break it up and I'll put it in my compost bin. So that's great for you, Rebecca. You have a compost bin. What other options have you? So when I say break it up, it's literally just pull it apart. Like, you don't have to get excited about it. The only reason you're breaking it up is that it'll decompose quicker. What you can do with it, if you have no compost bin and you have space, bury it in a flower bed. It'll do no harm whatsoever. And the other thing you can do then is your brown bin, really. If you really don't have a compost bin and you really don't have space to bury it, you can put it in your brown bin or at the base of another pot to start off another pot, after your drainage is in. Okay, so here's another one. I have another fuchsia here. This can be kept for again. Oh, cat, come out. That is, come back, Tom. Shh. That's Tom. Come here, Tom. Do you want to say hello? No, he doesn't. They're kind of like the kids. They won't oblige you when you're looking for them. So here's the verbena that was not obliged me coming out. That's for compost. The other things that are in this pot are these perennial geraniums, and I grew them from seeds. They're not the ground cover geraniums that people put in their flower beds as ground cover. I don't know what the hell they are, to be honest with you. They were a total disappointment. However, I'm still somewhat attached. I'm a disappointed parent, but I'm not giving up hope on these yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plank them into pots. If they survive the winter, I'm going to put them in a bed where I can't see them too much, but that they'll fill in a bit of space. And if I still don't like them next year, they're going to meet their compost maker. So that's that. So the things I'm keeping, I'm putting at this side, and the things I'm getting rid of, I'm putting here. So you can see they're well wedged in. This is an annual, so I'll just yank it out. It's going in the compost. Again, break it up. Don't put it in one big lump, because it's going to take twice as long for it to turn into proper compost. Here's another one of these. I call them geraniums. Sorry, they're not geraniums. They're dianthus. So a type of carnation. But as I say, bit of a disappointment. And I've loads of them. It's always the ones that you're not that mad about that are the biggest successes. But there's probably a newsletter in that. Okay, here's another fuchsia, and then another one of these. And then I'm down to just what's left, which is the used up compost. If this was your pride and joy and you were desperate to save it, I'd probably be treating it a bit more kindly than this, but I'm not overly attached to these. Oh my God, they're totally wedged in. Okay, I'm going to tip it out because it's too stuck. Oh. Sorry, everybody. It's not obliging me. Okay, you're going to just have to be right. I might have to work around them. I don't know why they're so stuck. Oh, I know why it is. It's because I didn't dig out this verbena right. I took the shortcut. Sorry. Get it out now. All this stuff that I'm taking out, all perfect for going back into the compost, or being dug back into a bed, or at the bottom of your next pot. Now, when I say at the bottom of your next pot, I mean after a layer of drainage. I know we've done that before in other lives, but just in case there's someone on who hasn't seen that. Okay. So okay. God, I can't believe how wedged in these are. Let me get them out now. Definitely should have rehearsed this one. I've never seen anything as wedged in a pot in my whole life. Right. I think I'm going to just work around it because I don't want to be holding you up all day either. Okay, so I can't get these guys out. I will obviously get them out, but I don't want to be spending ages at it, and I don't want to destroy the plants either. What you're going to be left with in your pot then is this, where you have kind of bits of roots. Can you guys see that? So you have bits of roots and bits of compost, and you'll see around the edge congested roots parts. Now look, if there's loads of roots going through the compost, the truth is that's probably not, the nutrients in that is probably gone, right? Or more or less gone. So you go down, keep going down till you get a bit that's not got too many roots in it. Like, that's not too bad. That sort of size is not too bad. And what you do then is you mix that in with fresh compost. So the shop bought fresh compost. And what I do, because that means 50% of what's in your pot then isn't going to have great nutrients. Throw in a small bit of chicken manure pellets. And when I say a small bit, in a pot this size, you're talking about putting in like a tablespoonful, that amount. And you really don't want to overdo it with those because they will burn the soil or burn the plants when they're trying to root on. So wait till we see. We'll try and get this. I'll keep going with this. But you're getting to see what it really does look like sometimes. I'm sure you guys have had this hassle too, times getting things out of pots. It's not always easy. And like, I suppose it's a sign that we're happy. I'm very sorry. It'd be amazing if these guys make it over the summer. Or make it over the winter to next summer, I mean. Right, one is out. Jeannie Mac. The other one. We'll get you out now, I'm determined. Woman on a mission. Okay. And I can see some of what the problem here is. I did another one of my shortcuts, so trying to cut down on using compost. I mixed it in with some of my soil, and my soil is clay, as I was saying, and I can see that it's kind of stuck together. God above. I'll have to look up what kind of dianthus these are. Anyway, they're out now. And they won't be going into any pots again next year, I tell you. Okay, so here, this is what you're left with now. That's what you're going to be left with. You can go through what you need to do. You definitely can't start planting on top of that. Definitely don't do that. If you want to reuse this, you can, but you definitely need to dig it out because you can see, look at it, it's all stuck together. How would new little baby roots of plants get down through it? Like, they wouldn't have a hope. So you can see I definitely mixed in my own soil. I'll bring this up to the camera so you can see. Okay. So you can see it's stuck together. The lighter colour parts are my own soil, and you can see that they actually do stick together like Play-Doh. So that's why it's clagging up. So there you go. There's one of the downsides of using your clay soil to try and extend your compost. But it's still fine to go back into the compost bin for next year. So what you do is you're going to loosen out all of this, which is hard work. If you don't have time to do this, or you can't be bothered, which I would probably fall into that category most of the time, tip it out onto a flower bed and let nature do the hard work for you. But that's not a luxury that everybody has. You mightn't have a flower bed to tip it out into. Dig it up. Anything that's like, there's another bit now, loads of roots in it. Don't bother trying to reuse that. You're not going to, there isn't going to be enough nutrients left in that to be any good to you. And here's more where it's all roots. No wonder this pot was so heavy. It's full of moisture. You keep going. Oh, I have another load of roots here. Right here, look, you can see still coming with loads of roots. Okay. When you get down to your drainage layer, so at the bottom of this pot, I have a layer of gravel to help with the drainage. And when I get, now you can see I'm getting back to it being nice and loose now. Some bits of, so what I see, you can see there's still some little clogged up bits of roots. Take them out. And when you're back to it being like that, and it's nice and loose all the way down to the bottom, I'm after hitting another bit of roots. Keep going. Then, what I would do next is add in some horticultural grit. I definitely need it in this pot anyway. mix it in through it. So you can imagine what that's doing. It's stopping the little particles of compost sticking together and clumping the way it was there. And especially in winter when it rains more, it's more of a concern. Okay, so I've that well mixed in. I get my little tablespoon of chicken manure pellets, about that much, remember, don't go mad with it. I'll mix that in as well because it's boosting up the nutrient content of this soil that has already been used. And then I'm going to plant mine up with my usual trick of bits and pieces I already had and new bits and pieces. So I have, I took that's a cutting, I think, from last year. That's another one from last year. It's looking a bit shook, so I'll disguise it at the back. And I have a little dianthus, winter flowering dianthus that I grew from a seed, and a couple of little heathers I bought in a multi-pack. And I have an ivy. I'll pop that in. And Tuga, I think, oh jeepers, I can't think of the name, I think it's Tuga, that's a ground cover or trailing plant. I love them as well. But the only thing is, if you put them on, I find if you put that colour one on the ground, you can't really see it because it's too much like the colour of the soil. But I'm hoping that in this pot, the contrast between the colour of the pot and the colour of the plant, it might actually be seen. So that is going to be the way I'm going to fill that out. So when you're putting a pot together, the rule of thumb is to go for what they call thriller, filler and spiller. So your thriller is the tall plant, and ideally you'd have something a little bit taller than this in the size of this pot. You're trying to get a plant that's going to be 2/3 the height of the pot. This just about is. And the reason why you do that, it's to do with the proportions. It just won't look right. It's going to look like a little pot with flowers all around the bottom instead of making a nice symmetrical looking shape. It's the best I have left though at this stage, and I'm not going to buy any more new ones. So then I'm going to take them out, I'm going to pot them up, and I'll fill in around it with fresh compost. And I definitely would use my fresh compost for that, because that's the soil that the plant is going to use first, and will help get it bedded in and get your pot off to the biggest success. And then just to go back to what I'm going to do with this, or what your options are, the plants I'm going to keep up this side, I'm going to stick them in pots. I'm going to use very little compost to do that, as little as I can get away with, because I'm not in love with any of them. So if they don't survive, they don't survive. And then the bits and pieces of soil that I took out there that are all clogged up with roots, or soil / compost, call it whatever you like, they're going to go into my compost bin. You could throw them on your flower bed, dig them into your flower bed, put them in your brown bin, and they're your options for that. And it means that, if you can see there, by the time I take all these guys out of their pots, the amount of compost I'm going to need to fill in around them is very small. So you are getting away with using an awful lot less compost doing it this way. So the only trick is you're trying to mind the drainage and top up the nutrients with your little bits and pieces here. And here's another. This is a little pot I had of annuals. Pot is falling asunder. So you could save the seeds on some of these if you liked. I think I've calendula there that might be worth saving the seeds, but I already have some, so I'm not going to bother. And then what I would do with that one is I will definitely put all of that into my compost heap. I'll tip it out. I'll save my drainage layer for again, because there's no point going looking for all the gravel again. And then I'll break it up. And then it'll go into the compost bin. Or same thing, you can dig that into your soil as well. You might be lucky and get a few little summer plants out of it next year if the seeds settled in. Cheapers, you'd really notice how much rain we'd had this week when you see the bottoms of these pots, how wet they are. Oh my God, can you see? It's absolutely soaking. So yeah, and that's it. So look, if there's any questions, because I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I'm conscious that I have people who only have a balcony, and I have people who have big rural gardens, and people who like pots, and people who can't be bothered with pots. So I'm trying to cover all angles. So I know I've jumped over a little bit all over the place, but if there's any particular questions you have about it, let me know, and I will answer them in the comments down below. And thanks a million for joining me, and I'll see you again soon.